Welcome everyone, this is On This Restart, and this time it's going to be a fairly quick video. Basically, people are saying that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has been confirmed to be open world. Is this actually the case? Well, let's take a look. So if we take a look at Nintendo's actual website where they have the literal listing where you can pre-order Xenoblade Chronicles 3, in the description they say something rather interesting. Join Noah and Mio, members of the two opposing nations of Kiev and Agnes, on a heartfelt journey through a rich, open world to end the cycle of violence. A group of 6 characters from these nations join together to awaken the colonies of Aeonios and expose the true threat both nations face. Traverse massive, fantastical landscapes as you learn how this game connects to the larger Xenoblade Chronicles story. So, quite simply, quite obviously, they literally say, through a rich open world. So, assuming there aren't any errors here, there it is. The game is open world, and it sort of adds up to things we talked about in a previous video a few weeks ago. We were speculating that maybe the game could be open world, because we were seeing different shots that seemed to have very large landscapes, very open vistas, and it seemed like there were actual ecosystems that were entirely different, forest and desert, that were right next to each other, implying that there are different types of areas that we can explore that are all within range without any sort of loading screens, suggesting potentially that the game is open world. And with this description here, well, that does add a little bit more evidence. Now, some of you may argue, what do you mean by evidence? It's 100% confirmation. And that's where I may sort of beg to differ a bit. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, there could be an error in translation here. Let's keep in mind there are multiple translations of this game. And also, whoever filled out this description may not fully understand what the implication of open world actually is. So they may have said that, and there could be a little bit of an error there, because in truth, all the Xenoblade games have huge, large, open-ish landscapes, and someone could confuse any of them as open world. I've seen a number of videos or journalists refer to Xenoblade Chronicles as an open world game when it's not, or Xenoblade Chronicles 2 when it's not. They are large open areas, but they're not actually open world. Open world would be more like Xenoblade Chronicles X, or Elder Scrolls, or Breath of the Wild, where you can literally go from one point of the map all the way to the other. Pretty much everything you see in the background can be accessed in some way, to a certain extent, of course, because there does have to be an edge to the map. But the other Xenoblade games simply aren't like that. They are just large areas, and there's loading in between these large areas. They're pretty large areas, and sometimes they do sort of mislead people and lead them to think that the game is fully open world, but they usually aren't, save for Xenoblade Chronicles X. But there is this belief that perhaps 3 will be. It is the newest game in the series. It does seem big. Like I said, there are connecting ecosystems. It might be the case, and with this description that we're now seeing, that adds more evidence for sure, but until I actually see the game itself, I'm not going to be 100% convinced that the game is open world. And to sort of add a bit more of a counter argument here, take a look at this recent Twitter post. So here it says, once you find breakpoints around the world, you can always go by skip travel. First of all, it is recommended to find a breakpoint and explore the surrounding area. Now that's a translation, but take a look at these images here. Lovely images. And seriously, the game looks pretty darn good. But take a look at the map. I don't understand all the text here because I don't speak Japanese. I'm assuming it's in Japanese. It's pretty likely because it's a Japanese Xenoblade page. But if you take a look at this map here, notice how there are what appear to be paths that you can traverse and walk through. But there's also this purple. This purple, I'm assuming, is not terrain you can walk through. So if this was a truly open world game, wouldn't we be able to access those other parts as well? I would assume so, but it doesn't seem like that. So even if this is an open world game, there may be a lot of points that you can't actually traverse. And you know, there are different forms of open world games. Not every game has to be like Xenoblade Chronicles X or Breath of the Wild. Perhaps these large areas can still be fully interconnected without any sort of loading screens, but from what we're seeing, I'm not 100% convinced that this game is a fully open world game in the same way Xenoblade Chronicles X or Breath of the Wild are. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think it matters too much because these worlds are all fairly large. Every single Xenoblade game has a lot to explore and it's all very enjoyable, and I enjoy the large areas even if they are not technically open world. So I don't think it's going to be really a deal breaker either way. Would I prefer it to be fully open world? To some extent, because I do think that improves the exploration just that much more, and I love exploring the Xenoblade worlds. And we have seen some things that do suggest it, like the connected ecosystems, or for example, having mounts or boats and things of that nature to explore large bodies, such as the ocean or the sea. So it may be the case, and with this description, it adds a little bit more evidence in my opinion, but until I see some actual footage or a more obvious announcement of it being open world, I'm not going to 100% assume that's the case. But what do you guys think? Do you think Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is truly fully open world like Xenoblade Chronicles X or Breath of the Wild? Or do you think it's more something along the lines of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or 1, perhaps just expanded a little bit more? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.